college. College happened to be a very happy experience for me. High school was okay, and I was a class officer and editor of the high school yearbook 25 years after my mother had done the same at Marshfield High School in Coos Bay. But highly significant was the discovery of broader worlds um, starting in the fall of 1959. I enrolled at the University of Oregon and was a biology major. That was okay, but my interest kept straying into the humanities. And in my fourth year, after being admitted to dental school in California and at the University of Oregon Dental School in Portland, I decided that that was not my future, that I didn't want to spend the next 40 years of my life looking in somebody's mouth. So I switched gears and said to my father, I don't want to go to dental school. Well, that was quite a crisis in my Christmas of my fourth year in college. And I remember my father, Dow Beckham, said, well, Steve, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to do history. And he said, how can you make a living doing history? I said, just give me a chance. I'll show you what I can do with it. So I took additional courses in history, applied to 4 graduate schools, and was admitted to all 4 of them. And I chose what I thought was the best in the country, a top 10 school, UCLA. And I headed off to Los Angeles in my mother's 1955 Chevrolet car. I'd never seen the campus, but I knew that UCLA had a formidable reputation. I was prepared to go there because my undergraduate advisor in history, Edwin Bingham at the University of Oregon, had said to me, if you get into UCLA, I'll write you a letter of introduction to my graduate advisor at UCLA. So when I arrived in Los Angeles in the fall of 1964, I went to see John Walton Coy, who had nurtured more than 20 doctoral students in history. And he said, oh, you're the Beckham boy from University of Oregon. I said, yes. And he said, well, do you want to do a thesis or do you want to do an exam for your master's degree? I said, well, Dr. Coy, I'd really like to do the thesis. And he said, why? I said, well, there's a topic I would like to write about and research. It's the Rogue River Indian Wars of southwestern Oregon and northern California during the gold rush in the 1850s. He said, well, are there any books on that subject? And I said, well, the best account was published in 1884. And I said, there's really been no modern research or publication. He said, that sounds very promising. He said, how about you bringing me a bibliography in 2 weeks? And I reached down and I handed him a couple hundred bibliography cards. And I said, this is my beginning research work list. He said, all right, then you sign up for the seminar on Western history, and I'd like to see the first chapter of your thesis by the end of this semester. So that's how it began. And in very short order, during the 2 years I worked on my master's degree, I wrote a thesis called The Rogue Indians and the Frontiersmen, and then submitted it for publication. And it became my first book, Requiem for a People, The Rogue Indians and the Frontiersmen, finally published in 1972. It took a while to get it through press, but I'm proud to say that now, in the year 2022, 50 years later, it is still available in print as a paperback book, first published by University of Oklahoma Press and now by Oregon State University Press. So I had a fortuitous series of events happen. Not only did John Coy become my graduate advisor, but he looked at me and he said, you're ambitious and like to work? I said, oh, yes, I do. He said, well, I have a position open for my editorial assistant on the Pacific Historical Review, which was a journal published by the American Historical Association. So for the next 3 years, I became assistant to the editor of the Pacific Historical Review, which was a fabulous opportunity. I had my own office in the ninth floor Bunch Hall at UCLA. I solicited publishers for books to be reviewed. I read galley proofs. I indexed the volumes. I was learning American history inside and out and getting paid for the experience. Consequently, because I was earning money rather than spending money as a graduate student, I put enough aside so that in 1965, I was enabled to enroll at Oxford University in England. I took 3 courses, but my main purpose in being at Oxford was to be able to do research at the British Museum, the Public Record Office, and the Hudson's Bay Company archives for what was becoming the book Requiem for a People. I got a taste of a European university education, but also did research in remarkable primary sources that no other scholar had used previously. When I returned to UCLA, I started the PhD program immediately. There was some pressure because of the war in Vietnam and the prospect of being drafted, which was the fate of my younger brother, David, who, while he was in graduate school at the University of Oregon, faced the draft and thus enrolled in the advanced ROTC program. He received his master's degree in business and his commission as a second lieutenant and was sent to Germany and then to Vietnam. Whereas I fortunately kept studying and got married in 1967 and consequently was not drafted into the Army for the Vietnam War.